The year is 1861. The United States of America, a beacon of hope to many, is fracturing from within. Brother is pitted against brother. The southern states, clinging fiercely to their agrarian way of life and the peculiar institution of slavery, stand defiant against the abolitionist cries of the North. The industrial North, witnessing the horrors of human bondage, vows to see it eradicated. The tension, palpable and heavy, finally erupts. This is the American Civil War, a conflict so devastating, so cataclysmic that it would forever alter the course of American history. At the heart of the conflict lay the brutal reality of slavery, a system deeply woven into the fabric of Southern society. For generations, the South had relied on enslaved Africans to fuel its agricultural economy, particularly the production of lucrative crops like cotton. Plantations, vast and sprawling, became symbols of Southern wealth and power, built upon the backs of those denied the most basic human freedoms. The North, experiencing rapid industrialization and urbanization, viewed slavery with increasing abhorrence. Abolitionist movements gained momentum, their impassioned pleas for emancipation echoing across the nation. Figures like Frederick Douglass, a former slave turned eloquent orator, captivated audiences with harrowing tales of the horrors endured under the lash of slavery. The chasm between these opposing views on slavery widened with each passing year, becoming an unbridgeable divide that threatened to tear the nation asunder. While slavery served as the moral battleground, the seeds of conflict were also sown in the fertile fields of economic disparity. The North, experiencing an industrial boom, sought to protect its burgeoning industries through protective tariffs. These tariffs, levied on imported goods, would make Northern-made products more competitive, but would raise prices for Southern consumers who relied heavily on imported goods. The South, heavily reliant on agricultural exports, particularly cotton, viewed these tariffs as a direct assault on their economic lifeline. Adding fuel to the fire, the issue of westward expansion further exacerbated tensions. As new territories were acquired, the question arose, would they be admitted to the Union as free states or slave states? This question ignited fierce debates in Congress. The Fugitive Slave Act, a key provision of the Compromise of 1850, further inflamed tensions by requiring Northerners to assist in the capture and return of escaped slaves. By 1860, the stage was set for a national tragedy. The election of Abraham Lincoln, a staunch opponent of slavery, proved to be the catalyst that shattered the fragile peace. Southern states, fearing the imminent demise of their way of life, saw Lincoln's election as a declaration of war against their very existence. South Carolina, a hotbed of secessionist sentiment, took the first fateful step, voting to secede from the Union on December 20, 1860. Within months, 6 other Southern states, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas, followed suit, forming the Confederate States of America. The Confederacy elected Jefferson Davis, a former U.S. Senator and Secretary of War, as its president. The American Civil War, a conflict rooted in the evils of slavery, economic disparity, and the struggle for political power, had begun. The secession of the Southern states hung heavy in the air, a specter of impending conflict. The newly formed Confederate States of America, defiant and determined, cast its gaze upon Fort Sumter, a strategically vital Union garrison situated in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. On April 12, 1861, the storm broke. Confederate artillery batteries, under the command of General P.G.T. Beauregard, unleashed a furious barrage upon Fort Sumter. The bombardment, echoing across the harbor, marked the commencement of the American Civil War. Within the fort's walls, Union soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, bravely returned fire. For 34 long hours, the bombardment continued, the fort's brick and mortar crumbling under the relentless assault. The fall of Fort Sumter sent shockwaves through the nation, igniting a fervent patriotic fire in both the North and the South. As the war clouds gathered, the North and South embarked upon drastically different military strategies. The Union, with its superior industrial capacity and vast manpower reserves, sought to strangle the Confederacy through a multifaceted approach known as the Anaconda Plan. General Winfield Scott envisioned a two-pronged assault, a naval blockade and advancing Union armies along major river systems. The Confederacy, aware of its industrial disadvantages, adopted a defensive strategy aimed at repelling the Northern invasion. Confederate leaders hoped that a series of decisive victories on Southern soil would demoralize the North. Central to the Confederate strategy was the hope of securing foreign intervention. However, this hope would prove to be misplaced, as European powers remained hesitant to become entangled in a bloody American conflict. The early years of the war were marked by a series of bloody engagements. The First Battle of Bull Run, fought in July 1861 near Manassas, Virginia, shattered the illusion of a swift Union victory. Confederate forces, led by General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, routed the Union Army, sending shockwaves through the North. As the war raged on, technological advancements transformed the battlefield into a landscape of unprecedented carnage. Rifled muskets, with their increased accuracy and range, made frontal assaults costly and deadly. Ironclad warships such as the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia revolutionized naval warfare. Behind the front lines, a clandestine war of espionage and counter-espionage unfolded, with figures like Elizabeth Van Lew providing valuable intelligence to Union commanders. The year is 1862. The youthful optimism that marked the early days of the war has long since evaporated, replaced by the grim reality of protracted conflict. The Battle of Antietam, fought on a crisp September day near Sharpsburg, Maryland, would come to embody the sheer brutality and futility that had come to define the war. Confederate General Robert E. Lee, emboldened by recent victories, had launched a daring invasion of the North. Union forces under the command of General George McClellan moved to intercept Lee's army. What unfolded on that fateful day was a maelstrom of carnage, a ferocious back-and-forth struggle that raged from dawn till dusk. Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history, served as a stark reminder of the human toll exacted by the war. The summer of 1863 dawned with a palpable sense of weariness hanging over the nation. 2 years of relentless warfare had taken their toll, leaving a trail of shattered lives and broken dreams in their wake. Yet the conflict raged on, its fiery grip tightening around the very soul of America. It was amidst this backdrop of despair and determination that the Battle of Gettysburg unfolded, a pivotal clash that would forever alter the course of the war. General Robert E. Lee, the Confederacy's most revered commander, once again sought to deliver a knockout blow to the North. Leading his army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania, Lee aimed to capture the strategic town of Gettysburg. When the smoke finally cleared, the Confederate army, bloodied and battered, was forced to retreat, their hopes of a decisive victory dashed. While the fate of the nation hung in the balance at Gettysburg, a strategic campaign of immense importance was unfolding far to the west, along the vital waterway of the Mississippi River. The city of Vicksburg, Mississippi, perched high on bluffs overlooking a crucial bend in the river, had become a Confederate stronghold. Control of Vicksburg meant control of the Mississippi, a vital artery for transporting troops, supplies, and commerce. Tasked with this crucial mission was General Ulysses S. Grant, a tenacious and resourceful commander. Grant's campaign to capture Vicksburg was a masterpiece of military planning and execution. For 47 long days and nights, Vicksburg endured a relentless bombardment. Finally, on July 4, 1863, the Confederate garrison at Vicksburg surrendered to General Grant. As the Civil War raged on, its fiery grip tightening around the nation, President Abraham Lincoln found himself wrestling with a moral dilemma that would shape the destiny of a nation. The conflict, born from the sin of slavery, had become a crucible, testing not only the Union's resolve but the very soul of its leader. Lincoln, a man of profound empathy and unwavering moral conviction, understood that the war was about far more than preserving the Union. It was, at its core, a struggle for the soul of America, a test of whether a nation founded on the principles of liberty and equality could long endure half slave and half free. The cries for emancipation echoed through the halls of Congress, fueled by the sacrifices of Union soldiers and the impassioned pleas of abolitionists. Yet, Lincoln treaded cautiously, aware that a premature declaration could alienate border states and further divide a nation already teetering on the brink. He recognized that the time had come for a bold and decisive action, one that would redefine the war and set in motion the inexorable march towards freedom. On January 1, 1863, as the new year dawned, Abraham Lincoln, wielding the pen of liberation, issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that would forever alter the course of American history. With a stroke of his pen, Lincoln struck a blow against the institution of slavery, transforming the war from a struggle to preserve the Union into a righteous crusade for human freedom. The Emancipation Proclamation, however, was a carefully crafted document, its scope limited by political and military realities. It declared that all slaves held in Confederate territories in rebellion against the United States were to be thenceforward, and forever free. The proclamation, while not immediately freeing all slaves in the United States, had a profound and immediate impact. It served as a beacon of hope for millions held in bondage, a testament that the tide of war was turning in favor of freedom. Moreover, the Emancipation Proclamation had significant international implications. It effectively neutralized the possibility of foreign intervention on behalf of the Confederacy, as European powers were hesitant to align themselves with a cause that sought to perpetuate the institution of slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation, while a momentous step towards freedom, did not mark the end of slavery in America. It was not a self-executing decree. It required the force of Union arms to enforce its provisions. The fight for freedom, now inextricably linked to the fight to preserve the Union, would continue to rage on battlefields across the nation. One of the most significant outcomes of the Emancipation Proclamation was the enlistment of African Americans into the Union Army. Black men eager to fight for the freedom of their brethren and their own rightful place in American society flocked to join the ranks of the Union Army, forming regiments that would become known for their valor and sacrifice. The bravery and sacrifice of these African American soldiers, fighting not only for the Union but for their own liberation, added a new moral dimension to the war. They faced unimaginable prejudice and discrimination, both within the ranks of the Union Army and on the battlefield. Yet they persevered, their courage serving as a testament to the indomitable spirit of freedom. The Emancipation Proclamation, though a pivotal moment in the long and arduous struggle for racial equality in America, was just the beginning. It ignited a flame that would continue to burn brightly, fueling the fight for civil rights that would continue for generations to come. By the spring of 1865, the Confederacy, once a defiant symbol of secession, found itself teetering on the brink of collapse. Years of relentless warfare, dwindling resources, and the unwavering determination of the Union Army had taken their toll. The dream of a separate Southern nation, built upon the backs of enslaved people, was fading into the mists of a lost cause. General Robert E. Lee, the Confederacy's most revered commander, his army battered and weary, recognized the futility of further resistance. Outnumbered, outgunned, and facing imminent defeat, Lee made the agonizing decision to seek terms of surrender. a decision that would bring an end to the bloodiest conflict in American history. On April 9, 1865, at the small village of Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, Lee and Grant met in the parlor of a modest home, their meeting a poignant symbol of a nation divided, coming to terms with its fractured past. The terms of surrender, dictated by Grant, were generous, reflecting a desire for reconciliation and a peaceful transition back to a unified nation. Confederate soldiers, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and defeat, laid down their arms, their war finally over. The news of Lee's surrender spread like wildfire, igniting celebrations in the North and bringing a sense of closure to a nation weary of war. The Union had been preserved, slavery abolished, and a new chapter in American history was about to begin. As the nation erupted in jubilation over the end of the Civil War, a dark cloud of tragedy descended upon a nation still healing from the wounds of conflict. On the evening of April 14, 1865, just 5 days after Lee's surrender at Appomattox, President Abraham Lincoln, the man who had guided the nation through its darkest hour, was assassinated. The assassin, John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer and renowned actor, shot Lincoln at point-blank range while the president attended a performance at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Booth, driven by a misguided sense of vengeance and a desire to avenge the South's defeat, had struck down the leader who had come to embody the Union's hopes for a just and unified nation. Lincoln, mortally wounded, was carried across the street to a boarding house where he succumbed to his injuries the following morning. The news of Lincoln's assassination sent shockwaves through the nation, transforming the joy of victory into a profound sense of grief and loss. The nation mourned the loss of its leader, a man who had come to embody the principles of unity, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the ideals upon which America was founded. Lincoln's death, a tragic and senseless act of violence, served as a stark reminder of the deep divisions that still existed within the nation, even as the guns fell silent on the battlefields. The guns fell silent at Appomattox, but the echoes of the American Civil War reverberate through time, shaping the nation even to this day. The Union, forged anew through the fires of a bloody conflict, emerged stronger, its commitment to liberty and equality tested, but not broken. The legacy of slavery, however, cast a long shadow, its tendrils reaching into the very fabric of American society. The abolition of slavery, enshrined in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, marked a watershed moment in American history. Millions shackled in bondage tasted the sweet nectar of freedom, their destinies no longer tethered to the whims of masters. Yet the promise of equality remained elusive. The journey towards a just and equitable society fraught with obstacles and resistance. The Civil War, in its wake, left an indelible mark on the American political landscape. The balance of power shifted decisively towards the federal government, its authority solidified, its role in shaping the nation's destiny forever expanded. The seeds of industrialization, sown before the war, took root and flourished, transforming the nation into an economic powerhouse. Yet the scars of conflict ran deep, the wounds of division slow to heal. The South, its economy shattered, its social order upended, grappled with the ghosts of its Confederate past. Reconstruction, a noble but flawed endeavor, sought to bind the nation's wounds, to rebuild a society shattered by war, to extend the promise of citizenship and equality to those so long denied. The struggle for civil rights, ignited by the Civil War, would continue to shape the American narrative for generations to come, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to strive for a more perfect union.